No stopping this. Take it to the top of this. Represent the block of this. And we gon' make it pop with this. And I'm making hip hop look cool again. I'm making hip hop look cool again. I'm making hip hop look cool again. It's out of seed, and I'm taking y'all to school again. Yeah.
Man, we are having fun talking to these guys about hip-hop. Last week, we left off with propaganda, and we are going to waste no time continuing this conversation. We are going to jump right back into this thing. First up today, Pigeon John.
My name's Pigeon John, you know my steezo. Whether in the Rego or shopping in Spiegel, or should I say Spike Spiegel, I'm lethal. Illegal aliens, they all my people. Get down, big up to black eyed peas and the elderly women up in the factories. Peace to my witty ladies who drive me crazy. All the South Bay bunnies at the beach. You
guys, how you doing? Thanks for your time.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm curious, in 99, so 17 years ago when Brainwash Projects came out, who that was you and who else?
That was originally the lineup was Be Twice and Soda Sadducee. And Soda Sadducee had recently left, but that's how we started. And then we became a duo right at the very last minute.
Gotcha.
And then that's who it was with. Mr. Be Twice.
Gotcha. Dude, I seriously listened to that album nonstop. Summer of '99. It was that album, and then Gospel Gangsters came out with "I Can See Clearly Now," which I think is by far their best album. And man, I was spinning both of those albums nonstop.
Wow.
All right, so this goes even more old school. Were you on the Dynamic Twins album?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that was you and who?
That was our very Dynamic Twins and Soup the Chemists and Freedom of Soul.
Yeah,
those guys really put us on Brainwash Projects, and Dynamic Twins asked because Soda Sadducee used to dance with them.
Yeah,
and they liked our sound, and they asked us to feature on one of their songs. And that was the very first, like, for us, pro recording with the record label and all that stuff. Nice. And they just took us in. They helped produce us, and you know, they showed us so much love. But it was only 8 bars, and it was like 3 guys in the group.
Yeah, I
was at work at a bookstore, and I think we held so much confidence in each other, and we were kids. We just said, Be Twice, why don't you just go and represent us with 4 bars? Because we were so young to be disinterested and complimented at the same time.
Right.
So like it would be a huge opportunity, but we were just open enough to just like you just go rock it, and so our first experience was Mr. Be Twice rocking it, and then Soda and a guy named Tapwater doing the background vocals. All on one mic, like the Temptations, like really for real BGVs.
So Dynamic Twins, that's like mid 90s, right?
Yeah, that's mid, almost
early
and
mid. Yeah.
Yeah, that's I'd say mid 90s, a good one.
Yeah,
around 94. Yeah, you're right. Mid 90s.
Yeah, Jared, at Cornerstone 91, I was jamming to their very first album. And
I remember it.
Yeah,
I remember. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, crazy. All right, so and how did LA Symphony? How was that birthed? And I may have asked Cookbook this, but not in relation to Brainwash Project. So.
Well, I met Cookbook and Flynn around the same time. Flynn at a wedding at the Dynamic Twins wedding. For some reason, we met there.
The brothers got married, dude.
No.
Tell me more, man.
They were on the forward thinking where brothers can be married, because that's real love, homeboy.
Dang, man,
that's that real love.
And I'm sure the church embraced them and everything.
Oh, without a doubt, man. We're talking about the early '90s. You know, when you'd get kicked off of. You'd get unplugged for, hip hop was very, very careful to do shows in the church. So it was, I met that guy at a wedding, and then Cookbook I met at the Good Life.
Yeah.
And at that time it was rare to find another MC with the same faith kind of thing. And that was like a real, determination back then. So we just latched onto each other when we found each other.
Yeah.
And then a couple of years after that, Flynn started doing music. We all started forming in 97.
Yeah.
We just kind of formed forces because Cookbook had this West LA crew and music going on. We had what we're doing with Brainwash Projects, and then Flynn had his world. So we all just kind of blended and met each other randomly and just really quickly did the album.
Yeah.
That's the best way.
Yeah.
I'm glad we got to experience that as kids.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I don't know how you feel about this, but I'd like to have you back on sometime and kind of dive into, where you're at in your faith, and what are some things you still believe, what you don't believe, and all that stuff.
Yeah,
that'd be interesting. Jared, I was telling him that there's a song on, it's called Dragon Slayer, right? Isn't that the album?
Yeah.
So there's a song called The Bomb, Jared, and all my kids, that's literally in the last 2 weeks, this is their favorite song. And Rosa asked me,
wow.
Rosa said, why is that guy like pigeons? Like, is that his favorite animal or something? Hey, so how lucrative can the underground hip hop scene be? Like, I've talked to some guys, and I know for some people, it's just like, man, it's really not really, but like someone, and I don't know if these names are familiar, but like Black Milk, Buckshot. I mean, are they even underground? Like, I used to think Talib Kweli was underground, but then he's rapping with guys like Jay-Z on songs.
Yeah.
So is that underground?
I would think underground. I think kind of represents sales in a form.
Yeah.
Or how are they putting their record out? Is it on an indie label?
Gotcha.
So a lot of that music is indie stuff. They're affiliated with majors, but the majors won't like fully sign them. Like, you're on Capitol Records. They'll have a sub label that they trust and stuff. So I think with for me, and I started touring in the early 90s.
Yeah.
On accident, and Brainwash Projects had just broken up. We always would break up. We were like a married couple, for real. And this tour, I went out with this band called Rod Laver.
Okay, I've heard of that. Heard of him.
And this was 99. So, and I just broke up. I told the guys, the Screamo band, I told them that we couldn't go because we broke up. And Rudy, the lead singer, said, dude, the tour's already booked. You're going to have to roll. And that's how I really came to be a solo artist.
Yeah.
So I went out to America for the first time, super broke, no guarantees, but I saw gold. All I saw was gold.
Yeah.
I was like, are you serious? I can make $80 a night.
Right.
That was like double what I was making at the bookstore at the time. And it blew my mind. It was like God really kind of showing, like, you can do it. And it's even easier than you think. Like, it's already in your pocket. All you got to do is just dig in.
Yeah.
It was really dope, really great experience. And a great way to see America for the first time with an act that's not hip hop. So we're trading CDs and, who's better, Led Zeppelin or the Beatles, and, just all this stuff. So it was like my touring life and mixing genres and seeing them rock it every night.
Right.
And that kind of opened my mind. Because once again, there wasn't a whole lot of hip hop acts at the time.
Right.
It was very rare for gospel gangsters to go out with LPG and meet up with the Cross movement. It was almost like a church where it's like they don't blend, they mingle, but they will not give their business to each other.
That's so crazy because there did
They'll
seem to be
it,
like a,
but we're not
like,
trading money.
Yeah, almost like a separate market. Like, I couldn't imagine like tunnel rats and gospel gangsters even in the same.
Never. Yeah. So what a lot of people ended up doing is kind of like church. The good thing is they ended up blending, and you have to go out with the ska band. You have to, so all this stuff you have to do that.
That sucks for y'all, man.
I know, but for us, it's good because we were hip hop out. Yeah. And by the time I was putting out music, I was already dead on hip hop and listening to swing music. That's why I was dressing up in suits and stuff. Because that scene was all, hip hop is a sampling genre. So we like what's outside of us,
right?
Sampling it and taking it home. So even down to fashion, we'll take, Fila, which is a tennis sport, we'll take it and put it on us and make it hip hop. We sample. That's all we do.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it was a pleasure to be in front of an audience and a band that no one knows who you are and everyone's just jamming. You perform differently when you have no backing.
Right.
So it was a great experience. But I feel you with we got to tour LA Symphony a couple times with Stavesacre, and we're in the van listening to Coldplay, and they're in the van listening to Tribe Called Quest. Only they don't want to listen to their homeboys band. When you're in a band, you're not going to pop in your homeboys band.
Right.
It's horrible. It's like, staring at yourself naked in the mirror.
Yeah.
You only can do it for a little while, homeboy.
Yeah.
I got a history question. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
Well, I was just going to say, so I'm sure I could do research and like figure some of this stuff out, but I just started I'd go on iTunes and I would find one guy I liked, and then I would bounce to somebody else who was related to that. So Talib Kweli is someone that I was listening to, and I just saw it as underground. Like, he had mixtapes. He wasn't your Kanye West, Jay-Z, Wu-Tang. Like, he wasn't a big name. So I was like, oh, wow, this guy's pretty awesome. And then I see on Twitter he's got 1 million followers. I mean, 1 million. I'm like, oh my gosh. But I guess now, looking back, he's cutting some songs with Jay-Z and Kanye West, and I guess anytime
it's
you're
also
affiliated,
longevity too, though.
Yeah,
you know what? You know what it was? This is what it was. His Black Star album came out.
Black Star. Absolutely.
When Jay-Z was doing like flossy rap.
Yeah.
Common and all that stuff. Common, Talib's, and the Kanyes and the Jay-Z's of the world would actually want to do what they're doing, but financially it doesn't. You have to bring in some sex, some violence, and some drugs in order to sell.
Gotcha.
You have to, or be affiliated loosely. So the underground represented, dude. We're not dumb enough to fall. We know that if you're in a gang, you made a choice to be in a gang,
right?
And if you're only in a gang when you have no choice. If you have a choice, then it's just, we kind of already know all the rules, and we know like the art of telling. Like when a person is talking about a murder or how many cases they have, they're lying because no one talks, or they're rats.
Right.
Like the hood is very simple and loving. So we didn't fall for their game. So that's why they reached out to Talib, in my opinion, to gain that.
Wow.
Let's just bring it back to hip hop. Like the Talibs, they don't need to chase for gold, because their goals are on like, we want to be like the James Taylors.
Wow.
Like the guys that aren't all for the let's just come everywhere and just take everything as fast as we can and die. There's more artists that are just like not falling for that. But he's that race and go. You know?
He's making a living off of his music though at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. They've been that Black Star record is a classic. So if you come out and you have a classic album, you're set like the Kinks. You're as good as the Kinks for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Because you got a record that's classic. Yeah, that's hard to do. It's very hard to do.
I think I don't know if I was reading something but like Black Milk, for instance, just using him as an example. I mean, this is a guy. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's making his stuff, and it's not on like, or at least at one point, it wasn't on major labels, and. Yeah, he's a rapper, so he's getting all the money. So it's like it's not going anywhere except for his pocket. So I mean, even though if you ask I would say 95% of today's youth does not know who Black Milk is. Maybe 99.9, and here he is killing it in the rap game. Honestly,
I think on a company vision, I think like there has to be the Walmarts in the music business, and there has to be the Black Milks represent a boutique. Where you're lucky to even be at the store. It's like In-N-Out back in the 80s.
Right.
Like when it was only there. So if you're in California, you get to do it, and you can't get it anywhere else on purpose.
Gotcha.
I think like making it a successful sound, I think is almost necessary, because the industry has changed versus, and it will continue to change. There was a call back in the 90s for singles like, very like, political singles, very like be a father to your child was a single. What the hell are you talking about? Be a father now? That would sound like TD Jakes started to rap. It would sound weird. Right. So it's changed, but this is hip hop's, and in my opinion, glam era. It's just set how much drugs can you do, how many girls can you get with, and how much money do you have. That is all that it is, and they know that they're doing it, and I truly think that they they silently look at the rapper's rapper, or the guys that don't need to do that or to push that, especially in today's climate. I think it's becoming irresponsible.
But wasn't Tupac doing that? I mean, he's got all the respect in the world.
Yeah,
I love Tupac.
He was an artist. I think has to be a double blade sword. You have to be able to pick up the gun and actually set it down and set it down so strong that the whole hood sets it down. So when he'll do a gang song or whatever, and then he'll do the Dear Mama.
Right.
There's a yin and a yang to the good music's and all great acts. Sometimes you do coke and sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
But
so
you
now
have
you're saying
to hear both
it's all
sides.
yin or it's all yang. Right?
Yeah. Right now it's just it's just one thing. And that's what sells, and that's a deeper conversation. But that's been happening and will happen. It just seems new to us because it's happening to us.
Yeah.
But we hear it in jazz, and we hear it at one point it's in Harlem, and as soon as it gets downtown, the music is dead. And the jazz dudes know it. That's why they don't leave Harlem. You know what I mean? So there's a wide variety going on.
So here's a history question for you. When you think back to like major musical movements, like for example, punk hardcore of the 70s and 80s, that was kind of a reaction against disco era. It was political. Then you had the grunge era, which was a reaction to like the glam metal. What do you think the original origins of hip hop? Do you think it was protest?
I was thinking about that question last night to myself, alone in the dark, smoking a cigarette. Okay, that's how hip hop I am. So I'm thinking about African Bambaataa, and then I have to push away I think of he was in a gang called Black Spades, the biggest gang in New York City, meaning the biggest dope facility. And they're not gangs just to dance; they do it to sell drugs, pretty much. Drugs and guns.
And we're talking 70s? We're talking
the 70s. We're talking 4 years after the White Album.
Okay.
That's how forward hip hop is. It's right after the peaceful and love stuff. And how it came to be was one of the gangs decided we're not using guns or fighting anymore. One of those guys died, and then the Black Spades changed from a gang to a social medium called hip hop. So, and that because one of those innocent dudes that the whole people regarded as, like a good dude, he died in a gang, in a brawl, and it shocked all of the 5 boroughs. So I think the first hip hop was put your guns down, and it was a necessity because people were beginning to kill themselves. Gosh. So it was like, and that's where b-boying came from. That's where dancing came from. Is we don't shoot, we break. So I think that was the very thing. I think that it's going to come back again to where it's hip hop that's bigger than ourselves, and I think that's what will happen. I think definitely that's how it started.
So really very positive.
So crazy. Extremely awesome. Positive.
Right.
It's a real positive thing, and that was it's pretty very, very linked with the life and death of like gangs or not in gangs. It was like a social call. Yeah. So that was the beginning of it, and so I don't think that it ever falls. Rock and roll never changes. So how it starts is basically you can stray away from it, but ultimately, if you kind of lose that, you're not doing rock and roll anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
So I it seems like the tide is kind of changing now. Now again, I don't have a feel for how big these guys are. I mean, for some of them, but typically I'm on iTunes. I'm like, oh, this guy sounds good. I'll get that. But it seems like guys like Schoolboy Q, Kendrick Lamar, A$AP Rocky, Hopsin, I don't know if they belong in the same category, but it's almost like they're bringing back a more depth to hip hop than the bling age of the late 90s and all. Like, am I on to something with what I'm saying, or do I sound like an idiot?
Yeah, I think you're totally onto it. I think what's usually what comes out or what's recorded is usually speaking on where hip hop was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So everyone in LA, it's the home of gangster rap, Los Angeles.
Yeah.
But we all know that the Far Side is actually from the same area. There's there's differences of there's different types of black people. Basically, they're breaking it down like that. Like there's not one type of rapper and usually the picture of rapper, you think of a dude that used to sell cocaine.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And if not, then he's not a good rapper, or he does not know the streets. It's easier to sell than not to sell, and everyone freaking knows that. And even the dudes selling it, that's why they look up to the schoolboy Qs, the dudes that stepped away from that stuff.
Yeah.
That's the hardest thing. That's the hip hop putting down the guns. The people who do that in the call out of a necessity, I think the youth have they're not falling for the they have become the spokesmen and women of hip hop, what's going on today, and they're leading it.
Right.
I think
Right.
especially
Yes.
with that movement. It's a beautiful thing that's happening in LA, and it definitely sets a bar where hip hop you can do anything that you want, and you don't have to do anything. As long as that's cool, you can do anything you want. But you don't have to fit a certain scenario. And hip hop of the later days was like, as long as it's new, I don't care what it is, but if it sounds like 2 weeks ago, I can't listen to it. It's that young.
Right.
So it's begging for originality, and I think that hip hop is doing that from the underground especially, and now it's seeping into pop music, and that it's just the ways of music, man. It's really cool.
Super.
But I love what they're doing.
Yeah. All right. So last couple of questions, and this is something I've always wondered about. Like when you're listening to super old school stuff, like License to Ill, some of the Run DMC, they weren't as good. It seems like something in hip hop has evolved, and that's talent and quality of lyricism. I'm not trying to talk negatively.
I know where you're going.
Old school, new
Dude.
school.
Okay. It's just real simple.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
Less is more. Less is more. One, you have to understand, I think, that Run DMC, the way they dressed was what dope boys or drug dealers dress like. So they're basically on the corner, and they did that in protest to the flashy hip hop, guys in red boots and tights and long pressed hair. That used to be the hip hop of the late 70s.
Yeah. So
them not dressing up and dressing normal, that was their stance. So I think, for me, it is less is more. In my opinion. But honestly, I didn't even to finish the question. I'm sorry I started rambling.
No,
I'm
just
sorry about that.
like if you listen to like License to Ill, it's like dun 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 dun, and it's like, okay, well now you've got like Big Boy coming out, and it's like, oh my gosh, how did he say that? Like, how in the world did he just get? So it seems like some of the lyricism has just gotten so like, or even nowadays, I look at someone like Drake, and he is obviously a creative genius. But when you listen to him and compare him to someone like Kendrick Lamar, it seems like Lamar is way more talented. It's just two totally different approaches.
Yeah.
I don't listen to Drake and think, oh man, he is just unbelievable with how he's rapping,
Right. I think hip hop is like jazz, where it's like sometimes you need that lead, that Miles lead.
Yeah.
The choppers like Big Boy. And then sometimes a piano player type MC like Snoop Dogg, it depends on what he doesn't do.
Yeah.
Where he doesn't go, and that's how he shines, by using less words. So I think every MC is beautiful because they can choose. Basically, you learn how to talk, and then you rap how you talk.
Yeah.
You're going to be original.
Wow, that's cool.
It's impossible not to. It's like a godly little music scene where it's just like, the goal is to be absolutely yourself, and the more you are, the more original you are, and the more you make people feel comfortable, because if you're weird and they feel weird, then everything's cool. Sometimes, some people.
There you
but
go,
I think
Jared.
hip hop is, and you know what? It is a generational thing. Like the time with Beastie Boys, a lot of stuff that I read, their sound sounds very elemental, but the producers, they were definitely on cocaine. and they basically hated disco so much that they said no more bass lines. That's why you don't hear any melody in the first albums. They said no melody, bro. You know how hard it is to do a song with no melody?
Right.
That's punk rock.
Yeah, Joey, I would say it's all contextual. Like he's saying, like, I mean, I think they're definitely you're creating art in a context, and so you're definitely a product of your context. So I think that, you know, over the years, the context evolves, so does the music evolve. Yeah. So I don't think you can diminish people like Run DMC, just like you can't diminish, you know, simplistic music like early Black Sabbath. Think about the technical death metal that's around today. Yeah. One's not better than the other. Black Sabbath is still classic. It's just a different day and age. It's all connected.
So what you're saying is Run DMC really was the king of rock. That's what you're saying?
There is none higher.
There is none higher. And then also, dude, hip hop and skating has been one and the same. The skaters are pulling off tricks that they didn't do back in the days, not because they couldn't, is that they didn't think to do it.
Yeah. Right. There's no precedence for it.
You got to,
you know, so and then you have once in a while you have the Rodney Mullins where they do something and then they set the tone. With I believe like the last tone that was set, the detonator, was Kanye West, 808s and Heartbreaks. Basically, that album subtly took for 10 years the entire industry.
It did.
It dictated what a pop singer was.
That's so crazy.
And we're just feeling Future just got on the Rolling Stone cover for Rock and Roll as the new lead singer. So I think like that record is so futuristic, and usually those records like License to Ill, they dictated hip hop for the, you know, next 4 years. It was so large. Yeah. The Andre 3000s, the people that I think like just go for it and just don't care about what's going to come out of themselves, just having fun. I think like it's only luck and blessings where a person rises and so large that they can affect other people. Nice. And add to the whole music scheme, you know, just by being yourself.
Yeah. Going back to what we're saying about context, too, think about this. I would argue that the blueprint for pop music of the 90s was probably Nirvana, Nevermind. And think how dramatically different those two albums are.
Yeah. One album. Yeah. One album, and Dave Grohl can do whatever he wants for the rest of his life. Do you want to meet Stevie Wonder? Yes.
Right.
Done.
Right.
Would you like to, you know, anything you want? You want to move to Malibu? So I think like, and those things are timing and talent and the hidden producer and then the ultimate thing which all musicians chase after is something when you do everything you have and there's something living in it that's bigger than you and you're like, that was fun. It's like a little dance with God or playing hoops with God. Nice. You know, just real quick, and then you go home. You know, you get to fellowship with whatever energy is out there to contribute to music is a blessing, you know?
This is awesome. All right, before we let you go, who are some of the best and who are some of your favorites? Are they one and the same?
MCs?
Yep.
Oh, man. Oh, yeah. I would say Q-Tip.
Yeah.
Ad Rock. Fat Lip. Rakim.
Nice. That's good. Good enough for me.
That's it.
What's your?
And then you know what? And then I have to say Andre 3000.
Yeah. Awesome. What are what's you got? Any current projects going on?
Yeah, I have a couple of the new record's called Good Sinner, and it comes out September 23rd. I got 2 singles out right now, just streaming about, and it's all done and ready to start coming out.
Very cool. Dude, it's been awesome, man. I really
it has.
It's been really cool for me to talk to someone I've been listening to for 17 years now.
Oh man. Well, thank you guys.
You some freaks. All up in the club, they like colorful drinks, they like those doves. Freaks. Even at Taco Bell, eating beef burritos and eating them well. Freaks. All in the Northridge Mall, Christmas shopping in the middle of the fall. Freaks. Trying to graduate school on a 6-year plan, but they still look cool.
Last but not least, the one and only Derek Minor.
I'm the RMG quarterback. I give you game that you better catch. Oh yeah, that's a touchdown. Oh yeah, that's a touchdown. Pay attention, let me give you game. country. And now they hating, they gon' get you nothing. Riding in the 96 colors, I got PT on the phone. Told them open up the budget, I got something that I need to say.
But you know.
Do you want to grow a beard?
With all my heart and all my desires in my soul.
I'm so sorry, man.
My genetics are like, nah. You don't need that. You just keep this soul patch for right now, brother.
Awesome. Well, this is my brother Jared and Jared. We're psyched about this episode, man. We're just going to be hitting hip hop from all different angles, as you know. So
is this Bad Christian?
So this is a podcast that came out of Bad Christian.
Nice.
So a lot of the same listeners.
Nice.
But yeah, so all in the same family.
Tight. All right, let's get it. I'm with it.
Cool, man. Well, what are you working on as of late? Like, what's going on as far as touring or writing or anything like that?
Nice. Well, I mean, obviously, with all of the craziness that went on, the Alton Sterling murder and the Philando Castile murder, and then the Dallas PD situation where Micah Xavier Johnson killed all those police officers. It's just been kind of overwhelming. So for me, right after I saw the Alton Sterling video, within 3 hours, I recorded, produced, mixed, mastered a song. And put it on. Yeah, it was called Free. Because I just think, it's crazy because I didn't know Philando Castile would be murdered the next day and the police officers would be murdered the day after that. But 3 hours, man, I had to go in the booth. Like, I remember just being depressed, like sad.
Yeah.
I told my wife, I was like, I'm going to just go to the studio and tinker around.
Yeah.
And my wife knows when I say I'm going to go tinker around, I'm not coming up for a couple hours. I don't know that, but she told me, she was like, I knew you weren't coming up. So 3 hours later, I had a song and I mixed it myself, which I don't normally do.
Yeah.
But that's that.
That's awesome. So when is that song gonna hit?
Oh, it's out. I threw it out on SoundCloud the same night.
Dang, that's cool, man.
So I threw it out on SoundCloud. We put it up on iTunes because a lot of people said they wanted to buy and said they didn't want to just stream it. So we put it out on iTunes, and like for me, it was pure artistic expression, pure passion, pure pain. Doesn't really have anything to do with getting money or all that stuff. So it's just one of the things where, man, my heart was just broken. I needed an outlet, and music has always been that outlet. So
Did you feel better after you made that song?
I did. I felt better for two reasons. One, I was able to articulate how I feel in a constructive way, because sometimes those ways can be destructive if you don't find a way to channel it. Yep. So I felt better in that way. I also felt better, too, because I feel like the church, Christianity, has done a very poor job at engaging young African Americans as they deal with issues of identity and they deal with issues of systematic oppression and all those things. I think the church has done a poor job at addressing that. And I feel like I've had countless black men come to me and say, man, you articulated everything I felt in a way that I felt it. And it's crazy because black Christian male is hard too, because the things that you want to do to release, like I can't go out and go punch something. I don't need to go out and cut somebody out. I don't need to go out. Like I can't let these negative emotions. So all the time, usually they get pent up, and then oftentimes the church just kind of overlooks your feelings, or they try to tell you that those feelings are fake. Yeah. Like, man, that's not really what's going on. So as a black Christian man, oftentimes we don't have an outlet. We don't have anyone speaking for us. We don't have any, and if we do have someone speaking for us, it's always from the perspective of, well, I don't understand it, but I'll listen to you. And it's like, well, thanks. But, I feel like me being someone that understands those emotions, I was able to really connect with people. And that was the goal. So I felt better because I feel like it has the ability, because I don't think this will be the last time a black man will get killed by the police officers. Right. And hopefully this will be something that people can go to and have a great outlet to share their thoughts and communicate their truths.
Well, that brings up something interesting as far as, addressing yourself as a Black Christian male, it's, especially in the hip-hop world. How do you feel, because your lyrical content is not only positive and honest, but also is gospel-centered. I mean, you love Jesus, just like Jared and I do. How do you feel when some guys in the, I don't know if you'd call it in the mainstream world, but people a little more well-known, like Big Boy, for instance, talks about the same gospel principles as you do, and yet when you're trying to honor your wife and honor women in general, he's going the opposite direction. That seems... Me being a big hip-hop fan, I'm always so puzzled because Big Boy is one of my favorites. That just throws me for a loop, man, because there's actually a song on one of his latest albums that was really moving to me, almost to tears, with how he was articulating the gospel. Yeah.
Well, see, the thing is, I think, especially for my Caucasian brothers and sisters, one thing that is often overlooked in the Black community, man, we are a very religious community.
Yeah.
Like as far as when it comes to, I know dudes that straight up used to, when they would go, I'm talking about, I know cold-blooded, sell dope, fight you. If it gets crazy, they gonna pull the strap out and shoot you.
Yeah.
But I know those same dudes, when they get around a church, will cut their hood music down, like rap music. They would cut it down if it was really vulgar.
Right.
And it's because from a young age, most of us were drugged to church. Like, we were drugged to church. So we've always had some sort of awareness of what Christianity was like. Oftentimes, so when I hear things like Big Boy or whoever talk about God, it's not shocking to me that someone from that environment does. He probably was raised like me, you know. He probably was raised in a rough area or whatever, or raised in the country, wherever he was raised. Black people we're a very religious, very religious group of people. So I know it gets confusing often from the outside looking in, because people, and that's a problem. I think sometimes we try to make things just so cut and dry. It's like, okay, this guy has gold teeth. He talks about having sex with women, and he talks about this. So he probably doesn't know anything about God at all. And it's like, no, he may know his Bible better than you.
Right.
He just may just be living that lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? And I think
part of his cultural identity then, right?
Absolutely. Culturally, I mean, it's guys that know the scriptures. Like, I remember, I don't know if people, I don't know if you peeped this, but even on 50 Cent's his first album, Get Rich or Die Trying, his first major debut, he said, I know that. He said, I could spit them scriptures right back at your dang. Like, so he's telling you, like, I'm out here in the hood, but like, I know the Bible.
Yeah.
Well, and some of these guys, like, they know pieces of the Bible. They know their portions that resonate with them. But so I guess all that to say, when I see that, that's not shocking to me. That's not like, I'm not like, oh, okay, Big Boy. I'm not shocked that Big Boy knows about the Bible.
Right.
This is the big thing.
And I mean, I think personally, there's and obviously none of us have any interest in judging and assessing people's hearts, but I mean, I definitely think that despite lyrical content, some of those guys could be genuine Christians that just hasn't figured that part out, just like I haven't figured parts out of my spirituality. So
sure. I mean, you can almost liken it to in Acts with Philip in the eunuch. He was looking at the scriptures and was like, I don't understand what I'm reading. And Philip broke it down. And I think sometimes we need more Philips. You know what I mean? We need more people that's willing to go to the eunuch and say, well, this is what you said, part of that's right, kind of makes a little sense, but this is what the scriptures really say. Like, a cool story, I was in the mall with my wife. We was on date night, and we were just walking around, and a black Hebrew Israelite walked up on me.
Yeah.
And, he started kicking his knowledge or whatever. And it was one of them things where it's like, man, I'm just in here to get a phone case.
Yeah.
I'm not really trying to debate you right now. But the Lord was like, talk. So he started talking, and he was telling me all this stuff, and I was like, okay, let's say all that's true. What do we do with that? I mean, do you think the gospel's for everybody, or do you think it's only for one race? And he's like, it's only for black people. Only black people can be saved. I was like,
that sucks, man. Damn.
Yeah. So I was like, so what do we do? So if you're saying that black people are Jews and only Jews will be saved, what do you do with scriptures that talk about John 3:16 for God so loved the world? Or what do you do with scriptures that say one is not a Jew who is one outwardly, but one is a Jew who is believed in Jesus? Like, I mean, in Romans, where Paul broke that ideology down, that it's not about how you're naturally born, but it's about you become part of the church or part of Israel through the sacrifice of Jesus. Or what do you do with scriptures in Revelation 7, 9 or 19, where it talks about how John looked up and said he saw everybody, all nations, all tongues, all of them saying salvation is of the Lord God. Like, what do you do with scriptures like that?
Right.
And he was like, I don't know. And I just feel like it was the opportunity for me to fill in the gaps.
Right.
Like, I'm sure there's tons of other gaps he has, but
So you were his Philip then?
I was hoping, that's what I was hoping to do. Like, I was hoping to take what's already there and say, well, and Paul did it all the time. Like, Paul did it all the time, even when, when he was at Mars Hill. That's what he did. He's like, man, y'all have an ideology about who God is. Like, clearly, y'all think you know who God is, but you worship an unknown God. Let me tell you who the true God is, and I think that's our goal. So when I look at rappers, I don't necessarily look at every rapper as a stereotype of just like, they don't know God, they don't know nothing, they just dummies. They just dumb gangbangers. Like, nah, man. You don't get to where a lot of these guys get being a dumb gangbanger.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You gotta be intelligent.
So Derek, who are some of the current best rappers in the game right now?
Ooh, this is that's a tough question. I mean, I'll give you the go-tos. Obviously, J. Cole, Kendrick, Drake. I mean, those are the dudes that's killing it for real. I'm a huge fan of. I like Vic Mensa. I like Chance the Rapper. I like the whole new Chicago wave. Mick Jenkins, Vic Mensa, Chance the Rapper. Like all those guys. Like they're some beasts, man. See who else I'm trying to think. Who's coldest out? I mean, that's really it for me.
Yeah.
That's about my diet right there, buddy.
Yeah, I would say they're definitely the most influential as well. I mean, especially, it's like you listen to Drake stuff and you're like, golly, everybody's influenced by this sort of thing, What about all-time influence? Like if you think about the greats, Tupac, Biggie, even more old school like Run DMC, like what would be one of the most influential rappers?
On me or just period?
Well, that's a good point. I would say period, and then you personally.
I think you got to give it to Pop.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's any artist from 1996 on up that hasn't, in some shape, form, or fashion, been influenced by Tupac.
Yeah.
I just don't think I don't think so.
What about yourself?
Obviously Pop.
Yeah.
But DMX is a huge influence for me. I was always a fan of the artists that were passionate.
Yeah.
So pretty much any artist that was passionate, you could probably say I would resonate with them. So I'm a huge fan of DMX. Like DMX really resonated with me.
Yeah. Now, do you get flack from Christians with a conversation like this along the lines of, Derek, I cannot believe you listen to that stuff. Like, I mean, these DMX lyrics, they're just, how do you address that?
I
your middle finger?
Not really. You know, I guess maybe it's because I'm getting older.
Yeah.
That conversation is it's never gonna stop. You know, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's always gonna be new people that are gonna feel offended that I listen to hip hop.
But
and
you
I
do
could
get
give
that.
you the nuts. Yeah, I could give you the nuts and bolts, and usually I just try to, in a loving way, just try to tell you why it's okay for me to listen to that stuff, and it's okay for anyone to listen to that stuff, in a sense. And I just leave the chips where they fall. Like, I'm one man. I can't. I don't know, correct the theology of everyone in the world that I meet. Or, you know, I also let it be up to people's convictions. Like, I don't try to shove my convictions on people. Every opportunity I get, I don't say, hey, listen to this new DMX or listen to this new Vic Mensa. Like, I mean, I keep my stuff personal, and people in my circle, they know what's what. But, I mean, if someone catches me listening to the new Drake record, like, I'm not going to be like, oh, I shouldn't show. I'm going to hide this. Like, I'm just be like, well, here's the reasons why. I think if you have a solid reason, biblically, those issues don't really matter. I mean, because some people, it's just preference.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
So Derek, what is up with Kanye West?
Are
you a fan? I mean, for me personally, I've been a fan of his for probably a decade.
Yeah.
But I'm just sick and tired of his egomaniacal BS. Like, I think his last album was the tipping point for me. Like, I found myself 3 songs into his newest album. And it's like, I can't take any more of this. He's a genius, no doubt. He's a genius, but I think he's also kind of turned me off a little bit. I don't know. What do you think?
I love Ye. Now, not as much, and it's not even because of that. It's just I don't know. I think he just lives a different life than I have, and it's hard for me to relate.
Exactly. I totally agree.
Do you think that it's more an act, or do you think that there's a possibility that he is that,
deluded?
Full of himself? And yeah. I mean, seriously.
I don't know. I never met him, so I couldn't even tell you. I mean, if I was to speculate, I think I know with my marketing and my team, what they usually do is take the best parts of me and try to expand them across all platforms. So I would say there's probably a little truth in his egotistical rants, and probably a lot of him in those things.
Yeah.
I would also say some of that is strategic. Like, I mean, the famous video, him having Donald Trump wax statues and
Bill Cosby, right?
Taylor Swift, Bill Cosby.
Yeah.
They knew what they were doing when they did that. Like,
for sure.
They knew what the outcome would be. But so is that him, or is that marketing? It's both. You know, I think it's just a combo of it. So I think, I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, I said I don't know. I never met him, but if I had to guess, I would think it's probably a little bit of both there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the culture, and here's what's funny is there are obviously there's some common ground lyrically that Christians like yourself have with people that wouldn't consider themselves Christians. But one thing that none of the Christians partake in, from what I can see, is basically in their songs claiming to be like the absolute best, no one can match me, and all that stuff, because that would just be so counterproductive. It's like, hey, I'm a Christian and I'm better than all of y'all.
Yeah, it's backwards. I mean, it just, for me, I feel like I'm an amazing artist, but at the end of the day, I mean, part of the hip hop is the bravado, and I think I probably stretch the line or across the line sometimes with bravado. I say some pretty pretty crazy stuff for entertainment sometimes. But I don't like that stuff doesn't bother me, but then at the same time, I just don't know how good I would feel standing in front of a group of people and the whole show be about how good of a rapper I am.
Right.
Like, I just don't. I think there's so much more that I could talk about than besides me just being a great rapper. So I think it's just that. I don't even think it's man, I wish I could say I'm the best rapper ever. I just think a lot of the guys in my circle are just like, man, there's so much more important stuff to talk about. Why would I just waste my time constantly bragging and patting myself on
And you
the
become
back?
more relatable too to your fans.
Straight up.
All right. Well, lastly, let's talk about your boy Lecrae.
Yeah.
And are we witnessing something that has never happened before, as far as someone being able to pull off overt? I don't want to call them overt Christian lyrics because he started that way. Now they're definitely accessible to anybody, but people know exactly where he's coming from. There is no mixed messages, no mixed signals. It's not like this mystery like Kendrick Lamar as far as, ooh, is he a Christian? All this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, Lecrae, everybody knows that dude's a Christian. And, I mean, his album was number one, you know?
Yeah.
Now, do you think that was just every Christian out there buying an album and it boosted it there, or is he getting the attention and respect of just the mainstream?
You know, I don't know, man, because again, I mean, I do know Lecrae.
Yeah.
But I'm not looking at the numbers.
Right.
You know, I'm not looking at the like I said, I haven't I haven't stepped foot in the Reach office in like 3 years.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's happening as far as behind the scenes, but if I had to guess, I would say I'm sure most of his base identifies as Christian.
Yeah.
Now, is it white? See, that's the thing you have to determine. Is it white evangelical Christian, or is it, because white evangelicalism is not the epitome of Christianity. You know, I think sometimes, you know, we think Christian, we automatically think white youth group kid. So, and I don't think that's necessarily the people that are buying the records, but I would say most people probably identify as Christian. I mean, it's kind of hard to look at what is being accomplished with Lecrae and say, this is not a one-of-a-kind first thing we've ever seen.
Right.
Although, you know, my dude Chad Horton from Rapzilla said, you know, there's tons of other artists that have taken it there, you know, like Cross Movement before Lecrae. But I don't think no one has taken it this far. I mean, only person I could liken it to, and he's probably going to hate me for saying this, but only person I would say would be Kirk Franklin. But he did that with gospel music.
Right.
He didn't. You know, but I think as far as people saying, like, this is a guy I can relate to, and I'd say he probably even took it further than Kirk, man. I mean, when you look at, you know, what he's accomplished, what he's been a part of, I think you got to definitely give credit where credit is due. And, I'd say we're seeing something special. And I think my challenge would be for people that's listening to this podcast, which I think probably your base is probably the people that probably don't necessarily need to hear this as much, but there's a story about Rip Van Winkle, and you know, Rip Van Winkle went to sleep in a mountain for 20 years, and when he went up there was a king that was in charge, and he slept for 20 years, and he came back, and it was George Washington, and he said, "Wow, I slept through a revolution." You know what I'm saying? And I think for Christians, oftentimes we're so nitpicky, right?
Yeah.
Like, this guy didn't do this, or he didn't say that. He didn't deliver it this way. If I was there, I would have did this. I'm like, don't sleep through the revolution.
Right.
Like, don't like. At the very least, every Christian can do this. Hey, you heard of Lecrae? Oh, you have? You seen that video? Wow, let me tell you more about Jesus. Like, it's not necessarily on Lecrae to save the world. Like, he's a rapper.
Right.
Let's just boil it down to he's a rapper, business owner, rapper, and there's only 24 hours in a day. You got to sleep 6 of them.
Right.
So, I think, you know, as Christians, there's tons of opportunity for us to step up. I would say even with the police brutality thing that's going on, most of the stuff I see is Christians debating over whether or not blacks really have a civil right issue or not.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, why are you wasting your time debating something like this? Why can't you just be an agent of healing? Like, but it's like, if you see a girl get raped and you don't know necessarily all the details, you don't say, well, let me find out all the details before I give you a hug and say, I'm sorry that you're experiencing what you're experiencing.
Right.
You run to the girl, you give her a hug, and as the details come out, you wrestle with them details as they come out.
Yeah.
You know, and I think just like there's so much that I think the church could learn by just listening and just literally being the church, not being some overly heady dorks that only want to chop up the Bible over coffee.
Right.
Like, yes, I love to chop up the Bible with you over coffee, but I would also say get out in them streets and go march.
Right.
But also say, you know, with sex trafficking, donate to the End It movement. Get to put your money where your mouth is, and don't just make it all about reading books. Christianity isn't just about reading books. It's about action. It's about taking action. And love is an action word. It's not something that you just read about. So,
yeah, you nailed it. We Christians are really good about talking about what we need to be doing.
Yeah, but suck at doing it. You know what I mean? Like, golly, man. I mean, I had a guy tell me because you know, I'm being a black person, being upset about what's going on. He told me, screw me, screw my record label, screw 116. I'm never listening to you again. I'm gonna go listen to G-Eazy and Logic, which I think he picked those two artists specifically because they're white guys. G-Eazy's white. He probably doesn't even know Logic is mixed. He's half black, half white. But I think he picked that specifically to try to spite me. But it's funny because I'm just like, what kind of, is that Christianity? That's not the Christianity I know. That's not the Christianity that has changed my life. But I think if more people would treat love like an action verb rather than trying to learn about the Jewish word for love so they can impress their buddies with logo software or whatever.
Yeah.
I think they would I think we'd be a better place.
For sure, man. All right, well, Derek, you're one of my favorite people to talk to, and I think a lot of our listeners will agree. So some of them are going to want to run out and buy a Derek Minor album. Where should they start? Minorville, Empire?
Man,
back in 2008, the Blackout. Where do they go first?
No, don't go that far, man. I mean, if you want to start at Minorville. I think Minorville was the first, like, I think that was the first Derek Minor project. That's like, yeah, I had a mixtape before that. Then, you know, Empire. I got a new album that's dropping in October called Reflection. So, yeah, you know, stay tuned. We're going to keep moving, keep progressing, and keep trying to make it happen. But DerekMinor.com, you can get all that.
Touchdown. I'm the RMG quarterback. I give you game that you better catch. Oh yeah, that's a touchdown. Oh, y'all ain't think it was finished, did you? Oh yeah, that's a touchdown. Now it's a lot of people trying to play the game outside the rules. For those that didn't get the memo, let me spell it out for you. Okay. Rule 10. Make sure your team always shine. They done put in all that work. They need to know they on your mind.
That concludes our hip-hop edition of Pastor with No Answers. We certainly appreciate Propaganda, Pigeon John, Derek Minor Cookbook coming on here, sharing some wisdom, having some laughs. Love these guys. Make sure you check out the show notes so you can know where these songs came from that we're playing in the background and introducing these artists, and go support them, buy their stuff on iTunes. Thank you guys for listening, and we will be back with you next week on Pastor with No Answers.